are happening. What else is happening in the world? It's the holidays. The holidays are happening. What's in the news these days? All kinds of stuff. So my topic today, as we get into it, I'll come back to it maybe a couple of times while I'm standing before you, is kind of interesting. Who, what, when, where, sometimes how, but always be. So a lot of the things that we're doing in this world, they kind of guide us and they seem to try to control us, and a lot of the experiences that we're having are not in alignment with the truth of who we are called to be. So the be is your dessert. We should have that first, right? I mean, it's holiday time. We're breaking all the rules. We're wearing outfits and clothes we don't get to wear any other time of the year. We wear clothes on purpose that we know are ugly. And I'm not saying anyone's Christmas clothes are ugly. I mean, my friend literally has a ugly sweater store in Los Angeles. So it's an interesting time of year. And we're celebrating in all sorts of cultures, in all sorts of ways. And so the reality is, as we come together, we're coming together in recognition of this eternal presence. We're coming together in a recognition of the infinite. We're coming together in a recognition of abundance and light and love and peace and joy and all of these things. But in many ways, these are just words. Like if you try to describe what joy is, sometimes it's hard, especially when you're not experiencing it. If you try to describe what faith is to somebody, often people talk about blind faith, but faith is even much more than some idea of doing something blindly. So when we come together, a lot of times we're caught up in stories. One of the things that I've heard in many of our New Thought circles, in this tradition, New Thought, Ancient Wisdom, is let go of your story. Has anybody ever been told that or heard somebody told that? How does it feel when somebody says that? Does it feel good? It's kind of like, oh man, I had this whole story going on, and I want to say I was good while I had my story, but really I wasn't. I have this story that I'm attached to, and do you remember where, who, what, when, where, why, really where it originates from?
The news.
Journalism, the news. Are there any, it must be some journalists in here. Because when I looked it up, I couldn't remember, I always remember knowing, I don't remember if it was third grade or second grade or fifth grade, but they started telling us who, what, when, where, why, how. And I remembered that, and Spirit just brought that into my attention, into my awareness, because we're constantly telling stories. And then Jessica and Patricia and I started talking about stories this morning. And we started talking about this idea in our culture, not Patricia and Jessica and I, but me and Spirit, about the stories that we tell about ourselves and the stories that we share and the stories that we're listening to. A lot of times, we're really telling stories about ourselves that are not true. A lot of times we are having, many of us actually are speaking the unauthorized autobiography of our own lives. Many of us are telling stories to ourselves that we haven't even agreed to. That really, if we did, let's take that in. You're telling a story to yourself that you really don't think is true. Who am I? Who am I really? Am I the person that was born at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, California? On November 1st, I thought you'd find that funny. 74. My mother is 76 years old, so if she's proud, dancing up and down the street, screaming her age, I'm definitely going to be proud of mine. But I always feel like I have something catching up to do to her. But I'm not. If we look at who we are, if you've ever met anyone from another country, another culture, another race, another religion, any sort of other identity that we have held, we're so much more alike than we are different. Scientifically, whether you realize it or not, we're really about 98 or 99% the same. the things that make us up, the code in our DNA, is almost 100% the same. And the little bitty things that make us taller or shorter, lighter or darker, to keep our hair longer or less amount of time over the course of our lives, is such a small part of who we are. But we don't look at things through a microscope when we're walking up and down the street. We're not looking things through a microscope when we're raised. But who are we really? Are we really the people that were born in a particular house or neighborhood? Or are we something more? Are you the things and the labels that you've taken on? What labels did you once carry that you are no longer? You see, once upon a time you might have called yourself this. When I once called myself a husky, middle school. I once called myself a Mustang, high school. Once called myself a rattler, college. As a member of a fraternity, I'm a Kappa. I had all of these labels and they all meant something. Because if the Mustangs and the Bulldogs were in the same room, there was conflict. Because those were our arch rivals and we couldn't even walk down the same street together. Or something. The reality is, we even take someone that are more serious, conservative, liberal. We take on things that are more intimately acquainted to us. Pro-life, pro-choice. All two groups of people talking about life from different angles. And yet, is that who we really are? If any part of you could change, that's not you. Let me say it again. If any part of you can change, that part of you was not the eternal reality of the truth of who and what you are. That is just an aspect of which you have experienced through this journey. Anybody evolve over the course of their lifetime? Anybody? Yeah. You know, we were talking about that at a meeting I was at yesterday, and somebody was saying, well, what really is evolution? Do we really evolve? I was like, are you still wearing diapers? Well, you might be adult diapers now, but they're very different. You can put those on yourself. But whatever it is, think about all the who's that you identify yourself with. Your neighborhood, your race, your culture, your sexual orientation. And even though you may decide that those things are really important to you, they're not the eternal reality of who you are. Who, what, when, where, why, sometimes how, always be what. The what becomes such an interesting aspect of our journey. Because in this journey, a lot of times, what is most important to us can also become something that takes a stranglehold on us. Sometimes the what makes it impossible for us to actually live. Sometimes we're so busy in the whatness of it all that we aren't here in this experience. So many times I'm having conversations with people or taking journeys with people, and what I'm supposed to be doing in this now moment is not actually what I'm doing. I might be folding programs, or I might be making this meal, but what I'm really doing is providing in this meal. What I'm really doing in my job when I'm working, I'm not really building something if I'm an engineer or designing something. I'm really sharing my gift. I'm really sharing what the brilliance of Spirit is trying to express through me in the what. But a lot of times our what, whether it's our job, whether it's in a relationship and how we interact with each other, the what of it gets lost because of the doing of the what. We're so busy doing the what, and we have so many habits and patterns of the whatness of it all that we forget why we do a thing. It's like the old Hatfields and McCoy thing, and they were fighting for so long that they forgot why they started fighting in the first place. How long y'all been fighting? Long time. Why y'all fighting? Long time. The why and the what and the reason, all of that's gone because they've lost the what. And the only way to hold on to your what is to be it. When? When is something that I often talk about because it's one of the things that just really shook up my world when I had a greater realization of it. Is because time, having the awareness that time does not exist is so transforming. Here's why. How many of you have had a limitation put upon you because of time? You were too late. You are too old. You were too young. You were 22 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 seconds. How many of you have had that experience? How many of you were happy about how time took that thing away from you or limited you? Especially when you were 18 and you were trying to have a little bit of a social life, right? Or maybe you were 16 and you were trying to meet some of the boys and the girls, or the girls and the boys in the neighborhood. Or maybe you were 21, or you were 18, or you were 30 and 40, and children started entering into your mix and someone said you couldn't have them. And now that there's a whole tone because of biology and sociology of too young to have kids. You're too young to have kids and you're too old to have kids all at the same time. At some point in your life, maybe you've got both of those labels laid upon you. What is time? For us on this planet, it is basically, imagine if you were to get in your car and you lived in your car. But instead of driving all over the places where you went, you just drove the same circle every day. Time then would simply become how many times it takes for you to drive revolutions around a particular circle in your car. Now, every time you pass the same tree, the same branch, the same building, the same motel, the same hotels, all of those things suddenly become based upon how long it takes you to go around them. That's all time is. Except for we live on a much bigger thing we call the Earth. That's this huge planet. And so it makes sense for us to utilize time, but we do not live or tell the story of our lives based on time. It is helpful. As with many things, it is a wonderful tool to master. It is a terrible master. Because when time takes over you, you don't feel like you have any control, when in reality you do. So the who, what, when of it all, when you tell your story, when you speak it, are you limiting yourself based upon a when? Now where is always right after when. Because sometimes we're not even here, like right in this place where we are now. Sometimes we're so disconnected from the activity and the energy of life, and we're so disconnected from what we're doing that our mind is somewhere else. But we need to be here and this where. So as we tell the stories about our lives, where are you? Are you deciding that you're in some limited capacity? In the where of it all, are you telling yourself only in this narrow capacity, in this narrow space of who and what I am, only in this place am I really me? Only in this place is life really good. Only when life has me in this place at this time with these people am I really happy or celebrating. Or am I open to something else when I start looking at where I am? How do I describe where I am? Am I using language that elevates, opens myself up? Am I using language that limits or narrows or decides that this isn't the place to be? David's sitting over there in the corner with a shirt on that says Skid Row. I didn't even have to look at it. I saw it earlier. I used to work there. I used to work in Skid Row, the area known as Skid Row, Los Angeles. And it was one of the most difficult, one of the most challenging, one of the most aromatic places I have ever been. And I spent almost 9 years of my life down there. And I saw some of the most beautiful and amazing and challenging things for me in my life. And it's amazing. But how do I talk about Skid Row today? In my greater awareness of what I was doing. Because no matter how much I did for those people, they were always the ones teaching me. No matter how many times I got somebody into housing, no matter how many times I taught somebody how to use a computer, no matter how many times I taught somebody how to use their email, no matter how many times I got someone a bed or clothing or helped their family, they were always the one teaching me. But when you hear people talk about Skid Row, you don't hear it from that perspective. And I probably didn't speak from that perspective the whole time I was there. Because I'll tell you a story. One of the most interesting experiences I had, one of the first years that I was down there, I was teaching a computer class. This was when it was during the big wave of when jobs were moving over to employment websites. So employers were starting to use Monster and Career Builder. Haven't thought of those names in a while. Those companies don't really do much these days. And they were struggling because their computer literacy, their computer access wasn't available. And so they were coming, and I was teaching them this 1-week course on how to use a computer in the basics, how to develop a resume, how to get it on, and how to apply for just very basic jobs. You know, even like cook jobs, you need a resume to be a cook, you know, at a small little corner space. So they were out of the job market even further because of access. So when I went, I worked with a guy named Art, and he was this big guy who had been working down in this community for a long time. And he was down the hall from me, or in the other building from me, and the people would come in, and the biggest struggle was we were in a small room with very little ventilation, and they brought a high level of aroma with them. It didn't smell good. And I didn't know how, in my identifying them as homeless individuals that I was trying to help, I didn't know how to talk to them about it or what to do. So Art can talk to Art. Art, what do I do? How do I deal with this person, you know, this situation? Because I'm thinking it's a sensitive thing. I'm thinking I'm trying to be compassionate and I don't know how to talk to them. I'm thinking, how do you tell a person who may not have this, may not have that, but they're trying? So Art comes in. Which one is it? Tells him to come here. And he tells him very directly, matter of fact, what's going on with you? What's going on with your hygiene? Where are you showering? Where are you taking care of yourself? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Runs it down really quick. These are the opportunities that we have. These are the places that you can go get what you need. You need to now go get it. Because you can't be in this space and contributing to this space in that way, but it's also a sign of what's going on with you. Because by the time a person gives up hygiene, it's one of the very last things on the journey of homelessness that they go on. It's one of the last things. They'll wash and wipe, but by the time they give that part up, you know that they've kind of gotten to a different place. So what did Art teach me? Stop identifying, and then he's teaching me spiritual principle before I knew what spiritual principle was. He's teaching me not to identify a person with or as their condition. Because I was in the idea of how they looked, how they smelled, how they acted, and that they're homeless and they're probably sensitive or da-da-da-da. Instead of recognizing what I know today. This is the image and likeness of God. It's just manifesting in this particular way. Its soul has accepted this journey, and as it is on this journey, it is no less capable of comprehending the basic human experience of how it should go through the world. And I can talk to this person. Now, of course, there are all kinds of different things you do when you talk to people and what have you, but I had to learn to stop identifying people as their condition. When you go visit your friends in the hospital, when you talk about Beth, when you talk about people that are going through things, whether it's in their marriage, whether it is in the politics, whether it is in their job, you identifying them as the condition or experience does not serve them at all.
Yes.
Yes or yes? And so the reality is, you've got to figure out your way out of that. So no matter how you feel about the president, no matter how you feel about the governor, no matter how you feel about your assembly person, no matter how you feel about the guy driving next to you, no matter how you feel about the person meditating next to you, you cannot identify them as the condition, or else you are now in that condition because you are the one holding that that vibratory frequency, not them. Again, you are the one holding that vibratory frequency. You're the one in that energy. It's just like forgiveness. We talk about forgiveness all the time. And so many of us have not forgiven the person that cut in line in front of us, and we watch them and we stare at them down the highway for another 5 or 10 minutes, giving them the evil eye, wishing they could feel everything that we could think, and they're just they're just having a whole other experience. Oh, I'm the only one. Oh, okay, I'm the only one that's ever done that. I've also gotten in front and looked in the rearview mirror and be like, because we have this experience, right? Who, what, when, where. The why of it all is one of the traps. So often we're so busy trying to figure out why something has happened that we don't even live our own lives. Relationships are one of those ways. Like we can't figure out why somebody treated us this way or why, so much so that we're out of the relationship and we're still trying to figure out why, and other people are trying to give us a new experience. There are other people trying to get into our lives, trying to meet us, trying to connect with us, but we're still in the why did you do that? Or why didn't she do that? Or whatever it was. And then we talk, sometimes how is one of those things, because we're trying to figure out that the why may be the reasoning, but the how would be the method. And so sometimes in our lives we're in suspended animation. Star Wars came out last weekend, or this weekend, like Han Solo, like we're in suspended animation and carbonite. Because we're so busy trying to figure out how to do something or how something is supposed to be done that we never do anything. So many of the life experiences that we have are given away because we're so focused on the how. So we're talking about all of this, sometimes how, but really the end of it is all about beingness. It's all about beingness. We take beingness and we throw it into each one of these categories of our story, and we rewrite our story. We're no longer limited by our story. Our story and the language we use is all about beingness. Who? The image and likeness of God. A gift and child of the Most High. That's the who. Every single time. Even when you're in an argument. Even when you disagree. I'm disagreeing with you, Sharon, you child of God. I don't necessarily like that green sweater. I like the red one. But you're still a child of God, and so my vibration and how I see her and how I know her is never diminished. She's never diminished in my heart or in my mind or in any aspect whatsoever. I can do that to Sharon. She can take it. So can some of you. I mean, she's married to Paul, right? I'm kidding. They are wonderful. They love me and love me up every time I come here, ever since I started coming here. But the whole who changes when we change who we are being. When we change what we are being. Love. How often are you being love? Joy. How often are you being joy? Peace. In the midst of these highways and byways, you need to be peace like peace never was peace before. Piece all your pieces together. Because when you are that, the whole world changes. When? More than anything, to be here now. Earlier we were listening to some Ram Dass music. His book was Be Here Now. And it's such a great title. I've never read the book, but it always made sense to me. What? Lots of books in this world. But I got enough reading the title. If you walk by that, stop it, you guys. Imagine, I wish I had a chalkboard. The teacher in me just kicked in. But imagine if every place that you spent more on a regular basis, where you had meetings, where you had conversations, where you met with clients, where you met with family members, where you prepared your meals. Imagine if in every one of those spaces you read the phrase, "Be here now." It would totally shift your attention. I used to do that all the time, and it's one of the best things that I could do. I would put little Post-its up on my computer just to remind me, because I've got my computer here, but I'll look to the side, and there'll be a spiritual principle or a reminder or the affirmations that are just nearby enough so that maybe I'm not thinking that I need an affirmation, but my eye looked to the side, so I'm going to take one in. But be in this moment. And the where is just about recognizing all of the potential that is in this moment. That you're not limited because you're in this building. Everybody close your eyes. Just right now, just close your eyes. We did a practice like this in our meeting yesterday. Bring this room into your awareness. Just be aware of the entire room right now. Your eyes are closed, you cannot see it, but you are aware of this room. Yes?
Yes.
Now be aware of this building and the parking lot outside. You cannot see the building or the parking lot, but you are aware of it. Yes?
Yes.
Now go even further. Be aware of Newport and this whole region. John Wayne Airport, Orange County, San Diego. You cannot see those things, but you're aware of them. Yes?
Yes.
And it expands even further to California, to the United States, and the Pacific Ocean starts to roll into your awareness. And you just go further and further out across the plain states. Now Hawaii gets in, Alaska seeping into your awareness. The entire North American continent is in your awareness. Canada, Mexico, South America starts entering into your conscious awareness. Costa Rica is in your awareness. Then South America is in your conscious awareness. And on we expand so much that the entire planet, this blue marble, as they say, with the white swirling patterns on it and the different land masses on it, are all in your awareness. Yes?
Yes.
Open your eyes. You have the capacity to hold the tone and frequency of the entire planet in your awareness, and it makes a difference. In that 30 or 45 seconds, did you feel something different? I feel expansive when I do that. I feel that I'm not limited. Even if I've never traveled to places, with the internet I can go almost anywhere, but just in my own consciousness, because it enters into my awareness, I can hold it in the field. Why? Sometimes I just tell people to give up why. Because the why at times can be like a ball and chain. Stop thinking about relationships, you guys. Behave. No. The why you can transform when it comes to beingness. You can transform the why by simply being the why. You are the why. So if that's the case, then that means God is the why. The why of it is always spirit. The why of it is always love. The why of it is always generosity and abundance. It is always the divine qualities made manifest. And the how, again, they're often related. The who, what, when, where, why, and the sometimes how of it. God will do it all. Beyond any limited idea I might have, my imagination goes here, and every time I go to the end of my imagination, I allow the infinite in all of its infinitude to take over. I want God's idea. If you look around the world, so many of the things that we have and we see and we are experiencing now in the world, none of us would have imagined. Some of us are walking around with the things that Captain Kirk used to have on his TV show in our pockets right now. And that was at the edge of the imagination. But now it is so much better. So my invitation to you is, as you consider your stories, as you consider who you are, as you consider what you are, as you consider where, the when, the why, the how of it, always land in the beingness. When I consider who I am, what is the beingness of that? As I write my story, as I share the experiences that I'm going through, if I leave this person who I'm talking to or who reads this in an awareness of what I am being, it changes everything. Do you have a sense of that for yourself? Do you have a sense just in your awareness of any story that you have told that you can now tell differently? Anybody? I'm done.